it's important to point out that while the Republicans have been the most effective at the most recent exercises in gerrymandering under Tom DeLay. Tom DeLay in Texas was in the Congress, and he spent a great deal of time perfecting this ability to gerrymander. The bottom line is this: is that every 10 years, when the census, the official federal census, is taken in the United States, they have to redistrict the congressional districts. There are 435 congressional districts in the United States, and what they're attempting to do is have approximately 500,000 people or so in each congressional district, I think is the most recent number. And so that as the population moves around or the population expands, what they do is they change the boundaries of the districts, or they create new districts. If say a particular district is supposed to have 500,000 people in it, if over a 10-year period it doubles and there's 1 million people now resident in that area, they'll divide it into 2 congressional districts, each with 500,000 people. And it's not surprising to note that, well, and the people who are in charge of issuing the redistricting lines is the state legislature inside each individual state. And what happens is that whichever of the 2 political parties, the 2 dominant political parties, happens to be in charge of the state legislature when that redistricting is done, they take complete manipulative advantage of their position of power in the state legislature, and they redraft those boundaries in such a way as to maximize the number of people that will be elected in the party that they belong to. And let me be clear, the Democrats do it too. This isn't just a Republican malady. Now, this is something that both of the political parties do because the 2 political parties are a function of a second paradigm worldview of this purported dialectic. And sort of everything is fair in love and war. It's perfectly okay to manipulate the political redistricting process to advantage your political party. And so whichever political party is in charge of the state legislature at the time of the redistricting, they always do this. They always try to set up the districts in a way that benefits them. And let me explain briefly how they do that. That, for example, in this hypothetical congressional district that we've seen that goes from 500,000 people to 1 million people, and they're going to be required by law to divide it into 2 congressional districts, each with 500,000 people in it. Let's say that there's a Republican state legislature in this particular state. What they're going to do is they're going to say, look at this 500,000 person congressional district. There have been 60% Republicans in this district, and so therefore we won the election for the Congress. So the congressional seat is being held by a Republican, and there's 40% Democrats, setting aside the Green Party and the different minor political parties. So there's 60% Republicans, 40%. Let's put it 55% Republicans and 45% Democrats. And so that if they left the district just like that, they would, if assuming that the influx of people who came in, if there's a real problem here, say the people who came in were a whole bunch of Hispanic people came in. This whole big bugaboo the Republican Party has. Say that they came in from Guatemala or El Salvador, and they came in and they became American citizens, and the Republicans were afraid they were going to vote Democratic. And so that the entire previous congressional district that used to be 55% Republican, 45% Democrat, has now gone to 55% Democrat and 45% Republican. Well, if the Republicans were in charge of the state legislature, they'd say, "No, wait a second. We have to figure out how to divide this thing in half and have both of them become Republican districts." And so what they would do is they would try to isolate a certain percentage of the new Hispanic population into one of the districts so that they ended up being a minority, and they would do the same thing to the other district. And so what they would try to do is to divide up two districts where they have the Republicans being 51% in each district, okay? And even if that district had to look like a salamander, it was all curly Q or looked like a snake, or it was checkerboard, they do the most outrageous things in constructing the shape of these congressional districts. But the objective of the redistricting is to have it be so that their political party has a majority in each of the districts, and so that what they'll do is they'll push the Democrats into a district where they end up being only 49%. Whereas if you just, for example, drew a line right straight down through the middle of the state, north to south, that they would say, uh-oh, this is going to turn out bad here because the Democrats are going to have a majority in each of these two districts, and we're going to lose not only our congressional seat, but there's going to be two Democratic seats. So what they do is they draw this salamander-shaped district right straight through the middle of it and have that be the district. And then there's the piece of the area to the east of the salamander, and the area to the west of the salamander is considered the other district. And it turns out both of them have been structured in such a way that the Republicans are in the 51% majority in each of the two of them. That's how it's done. Now, there have been very rare cases, a couple cases, one in Texas, in fact, with Tom DeLand, where the federal court came in and said, look, you have gotten so carried away in doing what you've done here that even regular people can tell what you're doing. And so that we elite people like the judges who are political appointees for the most part or run for office on one of the political parties and get elected, that you've made the mistake of being so conspicuous about what you're doing and manipulating this that even regular people can see this, and we're going to lose our credibility. The elite are going to lose our credibility in the eyes of the great unwashed. They're going to realize you're up to something. And so that you can't do that. And so that there are efforts underway now through major litigation to try to get them to be required as a matter of constitutional law to have districts done objectively. For example, in the state of California, on the 2018 ballot, there is a referendum that is being undertaken right now to establish a commission that will do an independent commission. It would have a bipartisan commission. They would have a commission that's made up of an equal number of Democrats and Republicans from the state legislature that are going to oversee the redistricting, so that neither one of the parties can have dominant control over that. And so that they would have and what you would find is that the Republicans and Democrats are going to join together to make sure that the Republicans and Democrats maintain control and don't allow any of the Green Party or any other political party, the Natural Law Party, the Liberal Party, the Conservative. They won't allow any other party other than Republicans or Democrats. And what they would probably do is divide the two districts. They say, okay, you guys take one, we'll take one. And they would try to maintain their own control over things. Now, from a constitutional point of view, we've won certain cases saying that, look, the reason why they have to redistrict every 10 years is because it's unconstitutional to have one congressional district, for example, that has only 10,000 people in it, and another congressional district that has 500,000 people in it, because each of them are going to have one congressional representative. And so the people where there's only 10,000 people in the entire congressional district, they've got their own congressperson. In the other place that has 500,000 people in it, they've only got one congressperson. That's 50 times more power that they have per person. So there's supposed to be one person, one vote. Okay, so that that's the legal term of art. One person, one vote. So that they're driving toward having an equal number of voters or citizens in each of the congressional districts. That's the constitutional principle that is applicable here. But up to this point in time, they haven't had anything that takes into account this activity on the part of the political parties trying to gerrymander them so that their political party ends up in charge. As long as they abide by the constitutional principle that both of the districts have basically the same number of people in them, the fact that they gerrymandered the district so that both districts end up with 51% of the people being Republican so they can control the seat, that they have not yet developed a constitutional principle that is being violated there. And the problem is that the Trump administration, as you probably know, is in the process now. It turns out the number now is 157 new federal judges. They're going to fill vacancies. There have been 157 vacancies in the federal courts, or the federal district courts and the courts of appeals, that the Trump administration is now going to get to nominate. And since the Republicans control the House of Representatives, the Senate, the United States Senate Judiciary Committee is the committee that vets these individual congressional or judicial appointments, and then they take it to the floor, and the Republicans vote on a straight party line, and no matter who gets nominated by the Republican Party, the Republican Party dominates the House Judiciary Committee under Orrin Hatch from Utah, and they will approve the Republican nominee. And even if all the Democrats vote against them inside the Judiciary Committee and even on the floor of the Senate, they'll still lose. And so the Republicans will win. And so what they're doing is they're selecting the most reactionary possible judges, as young as possible. They're looking for like 30-year-old, 32, 33-year-old Federalist Society lawyers to put into the federal judiciary. And so that when you take this question to the federal judiciary and you say, look, here is the Republican Party, skewering the new congressional districts in such a way as to give the Republicans control over all of the new congressional districts that are being designed. You ought to stop this. Well, they aren't going to stop it because they're Republicans. And no matter what you say, the difference in a Republican-appointed judge and a Democratic judge is very real. And a democratically appointed judge will favor Democrats, and the Republican-appointed judge will favor Republicans. And no matter what kind of protestations they make to assert that they're neutral and objective and honest, it isn't true. Because if you have a political appointment system, they're going to be appointed because of their political dispositions. And to the extent to which they think the only two options are Republicans and Democrats for your political dispositions, that's how they're going to be chosen. So that the prospects for being able to deal with this gerrymandering issue through the courts is becoming more and more limited because of the filling up of these 157 vacancies with these right-wing Federalist Society judges that are going to be supportive of reactionary Republicans. And having the district set up so that a reactionary, like Moore from Alabama, can be chosen. In that case, it's the Senate, so it's not as applicable, but it's the congressional representatives. The individual Congress people are going to be complete reactionaries, and that they're going to set up the congressional district to empower the reactionaries in each one of the congressional districts to dominate and control. So we're in a very serious situation. I mean, the implications of the Trump administration that we've been talking about here for the entire hour and a half are extremely dire, and that's why getting him out of there as fast as we can, and getting him and Pence out of there as fast as we can, is really essential, because it's destroying the potential of any kind of truly objective and honest judiciary, and that is absolutely critical, because to the extent to which they think, well, whatever combat the Republicans and Democrats are engaged in against each other. There's always the objective court system that you can take it to. In this instance, they're trying to eliminate any type of independence and objectivity on the part of the judicial branch of the government. They're trying to turn them all into hardcore right-wing reactionaries. And to the extent to which the hardcore right-wing reactionaries have taken over the Republican Party, they're going to end up being supportive of the Republican Party. And more importantly, on behalf of right-wing reactionary principles and policies. This is the danger, and this is the reason that we have to work as hard as we do to get rid of Trump as fast as possible and to get rid of him and Pence as soon as possible, and to get a progressive administration put into power. Now, the challenge we're going to have once we accomplish this is that they're going to accuse us of doing the exact same thing. If we go in and try to load up the entire judicial system with progressive judges, they're going to say, see, they're doing the same thing. And it's going to justify their perception of the world as a dialectical second paradigm, us versus them, good guys versus bad guys, and that's one of the things that we have to try to transcend. We have to try to figure out how we can have a genuinely honest, first of all, a genuinely honest and objective and independent judiciary. That is absolutely fundamental to any system of justice. And ideally, you want to have an absolutely honest and independent Congress, House and Senate. And ideally, you want to have an independent, objective, and honest executive branch. But the problem is that ever since the initiation of the two-party system, under Adams and Hamilton and the others, it's been skewered like this. It's been skewered toward favoring one political party or another, and the political parties have tended to gravitate toward taking ideological positions. And at the present time, for the entire 20th century, the fundamental ideological struggle was fundamentally between socialism and capitalism, and that identified the dynamic. And the Democratic Party was working on behalf of a semi-democratic socialist agenda to try to present an alternative to communism. And the capitalists all resided in the Republican Party. And so you had this dynamic that went on throughout the entire 20th century, since 1917, actually, that you had this dynamic of the Republicans trying to push forward a hardcore, robber baron, capitalist, imperialist agenda, elite, racist, misogynist agenda, exactly like that of the robber barons from 1868 to 1898. They attempted to carry this on through the entire 20th century. And the Democrats were trying to say, look, if you guys keep that up, you're going to open the door to communists. Communists are going to take an aggressive position against capitalism to destroy it. And so that we're going to, as a Democratic Party, we're going to be recommending social democratic programs like, like Social Security and Medicaid and unemployment insurance and things like this to help support the working class people. Because if we allow the Republicans to have their way, the only option that they're going to have is communism. And so that we as a Democratic Party are going to be functioning as the alternative to a communist confrontation with capitalists. And the problem that's happened here now is now that the Cold War came to an end on December 31st of 1991, and the Soviet Union basically abandoned the field, the Republican Party went hardcore right-wing, just went right straight to the right-wing reactionary robber baron mentality that had developed from 1868 to 1898. And the Democratic Party, then under the leadership of Richard Gebhardt, basically, of Indiana, I think he was from, he advocated setting up a thing called the Democratic Leadership Conference, which Bill Clinton was a part of, Hillary Clinton was a part of, Al Gore was a part of, all of those kind of mealy-mouthed middle marginalists, of the new, more moderate Democratic Party. They all started abandoning the entire social democratic agenda. said, why should we have to continue advocating a social democratic agenda if there's really no communist threat left anymore? And the Republicans said, why should we be moderate in any way at all? Why don't we just espouse exactly what we believe in and go straight hardcore right-wing, reactionary, racist, misogynist, elitist that we are, and imperialist, and invade the Middle Eastern oil fields, and why not just do what we want to do? And the problem is that they have found their footing. They've found their footing because they've got that tradition of the robber baron era, and they know exactly what they want to do. Democrats don't know what to do, because they developed over the last, almost 75 years, they developed this democratic socialist kind of agenda, and now they don't want to really espouse it any longer. But they don't know what to espouse. That's their problem, is that they have not gotten their footing since the end of the Cold War. They tried this kind of new, more moderate Democratic Party, but all they were is Republican light. They were just like moderate Republicans, and that's what Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton were like, and they lost control because they abandoned the entire working class, and the working class basically abandoned them. And Donald Trump, with his kind of bizarreness and his eclectic bizarreness, appealed to the white males. He appealed to their misogyny and to their fury at the elite, and he ended up unseating them. And so that we have this extremely fluid situation right now, and it's very unstable. It's destabilized the Republican Party. The regular conservatives in the Republican Party feel that they're out of power. There's this huge hardcore shift to the right for the reactionaries in the Republican Party coming to dominate and control. And they refer to them as the Freedom Caucus, but that's not true. They're not Freedom Caucus. They're hardcore fascist, reactionary, racist bigots. And we see it manifesting in people marching in the streets with torches and stuff now. And so the Democrats, basically the old term of art is they don't know whether to shit or steal third base. This is kind of an old legal phrase, but the bottom line is that's what the problem is. They don't know what to do. They haven't regained their footing. They haven't established any kind of an ideology. They haven't established any kind of an ethos. And what we need to do is, during this period of disquietude and destabilization, we have to reach out and get the Progressive Caucus to organize inside the House of Representatives, put forth a full-scale, clear, alternative agenda, and put it in as the platform for the Democratic Party, a Justice Democratic Party platform for the Democratic Convention of 2020. We need to mobilize Justice Democrats to come into power in 2018. We need to organize people to run for the congressional seats that are not regular traditional Democrats. We have to run against the people that are reactionaries to stop them from getting into power. The challenge that we have is, how do you run a progressive person in a congressional district where it's gerrymandered and the hardcore right-wing reactionaries are basically in control? You get that example down in Alabama right now that we're going to look at, I guess, Wednesday night. And you get Moore running down there, who's a classic troglodyte. And the guy that's running against him is a basic, because they didn't think he had any chance of winning, but the guy they put up against him, is a kind of a nebbish accountant, of some kind, and he's got the personality of a shoebox, and so it makes it difficult. But he doesn't have it because he's afraid of advocating any kind of progressive agenda, because the people there simply are not progressive. The culture is not progressive. The media are not progressive. The people have been brainwashed into believing that the ACLU are all communist conspirators, that are trying to turn everybody into transvestites, and have, children and women sharing your restrooms in the men's room. And it's like somebody put a screwdriver in their ear and just twisted it around. They don't know what they're talking about. But the Democrats have an obligation, the Justice Democrats have an obligation to formulate a full-scale progressive agenda which is going to appeal to people who are in the working class, that are going to appeal to people on the basis of their fundamental civil rights, and they need to look to and resort to the principles of natural law, and to set forth the guiding light and principles of their party. That's what they need to do. There needs to be a new Justice Democratic Party, and basically go at it from the inside of the Democratic Party and to take it over. That's what has to happen now between 2018 and 2020. That's what's got to happen.
Do you see much momentum that came from the Bernie Sanders wing of the Democratic Party? And I think the Justice Democrats likely grew out of that. Do you see that momentum?
That's where they did come from.
Yeah, and they're building on that.
Very clearly. Yep, very clearly the momentum is building. They're doing a lot of hard work. They're out in the field doing exactly what I'm talking about right now. You got Tom Steyer, who is going on television, spending millions and millions of dollars of his own money, advocating the impeachment of Trump, over the heads of all the Democrats. The Democratic Party doesn't want to impeach Trump. They don't want to do it. They want to leave him in there and make as much hay as they can to see if they can switch over some of those Republican seats in Congress to get the Republican brand so tarnished that people will actually vote for them, and therefore they'll get more Democrats in, and they'll take control of the seats in the House and Senate, and they'll get all the benefits, and they'll appoint their own staffs. They're just trapped in this kind of blind, non-substantive dialectic. Now that they've abandoned the social democratic agenda, they don't have any kind of real ideological reason for wanting to win, other than they want to be in control. Now that I hasten to add that it's not to suggest that there's no difference, that there's no difference between a Democratic administration, even a regular Democratic administration, and the new right-wing Republican administration. There is, but I'm not into advocating sticking one sharp stick in one eye just because it's better than stabbing two sharp sticks into both your eyes. That's not the standard we need to go by. We need to articulate what ought to be done, what needs to be done, and that we ought to mobilize behind it. And a Justice Democratic set of candidates and a political platform and a set of proposals need to be set forth. And the people need to mobilize around this. I suggest resorting to the natural law principles that undergird the entire United States Constitution and the original founding documents of the country. And to get back to this, to refresh this, to push the refresh button on our American Constitution and get back to the fundamental principles and raise up a progressive agenda that is going to be to the benefit of most everybody, except for the extreme wealthy people. And we're not trying to undermine the entrepreneurial spirit. We're just trying to say that they've rigged the entire system, and they've showed over and over again that if you don't stop them from doing this, they will so destabilize the system that it'll collapse. They'll keep on sucking the value out of the thing, to the point of having more summer homes and winter chalets and more yachts and everything else in private airplanes until they collapse the whole system, just like they did in 1929. You can see it going on with the stock market right now. The stock market is just soaring out of control. They're going to go to the 24,000 or something. It's getting
they're 24,000.
They're all sitting just skimming all this cash off the top of the stock market right now, so they can buy new homes and stuff, and give their kids sports cars for their 16th birthday. And this is a travesty. We've already been through this in 1929. They can't do this again. We cannot allow them to do this again. We have to be able to see from history what they're going to do. We need to mobilize, and we've got this period between now 2018 and 2020 to do it. This is a critical juncture in the whole history of the American democratic system. So we have to mobilize now and get these people out of there and get the right people moved into that position. And I keep saying it over and over and over again. People need to contact the people that are in the Progressive Caucus. There's 74 of them, I believe. To contact them and to get them to put forward a full-scale political platform for the Justice Democrats in the Democratic Convention in 2020, We need to mobilize and get candidates into the field in 2018 throughout the country, and do your own crowdfunding over the internet to get people to send money to these candidates, and get the candidates to set up an election committee so they don't have to pay income tax on the money that's coming into them, and mobilize to get this thing to happen. You aren't going to have anybody else to blame if, after 2020 we're sitting looking at an administration that's like the Trump administration, because we aren't going to survive that. We won't survive it because of the global climate change. We won't survive it because of the taking over of the entire judiciary for the next 40 years. We won't be able to survive it because of the erosion of our civil liberties. And what we may do is just relive the exact experience they had in Germany, in the 1920s and 1930s, to the point where there's fighting in the streets between the left and right. There's going to be, the takeover of the government by fascists, and they're going to be engaged in a major imperial war. And we'll have a major third world war, just like Steve Bannon has been advocating, we're we just cannot go through that again. But we're not without power. We have power to stop it.